real quick, before we start this podcast off right with some music, I did want to tell you folks about 2 events coming up here in July. First of all, we got our virtual Tile Money Business Boost Challenge event. That's the last week in July, 26th through the 30th. It's a 5-day event, 10 hours. We've got 2 different ways you can come in and get that education. We've got a free avenue and then a paid avenue where we're going to, work with you a little bit closer. So if you're interested in tightening up your business, look into the Business Boost Challenge. That's tilemoney.com/challenge. And then we got Tile Tools is throwing a Freedom event at the, the 21st of July in Wisconsin. And that's going to be a great event. I'm going to be doing a live podcast there.
We'll be there, Rodkat.
We'll be there? All right. So those are the 2 events we've got coming up, guys. All right, let's do this. Hello, Tile friends, and welcome back to another episode of the Tile Money Podcast. This is the podcast that is changing the industry. We're doing that with our unique business education designed for contractors by contractors. A stronger tile contractor base is a stronger industry, and that's why we're doing this, to strengthen the tile industry. And you've all told me it's working. You're enjoying. Thanks for listening to the podcast. Thank you for being here today, Rod. We're going to have a great conversation. I do want to thank a few people. We've been having a heck of a show here at Coverings, and I just want to mention a few people. I can't mention everybody because there's just too many people, and so I apologize if I don't mention your name. I've been really blessed to have so many friends here and connect on so many levels. The NTCA had their awards show last night. I just want to mention a few people who got an award. One of my good friends, John Roberts, he got the first ever Dan Heacock Service Award. Congratulations, John Roberts. You've been working hard with Gunlock and the NTCA and the CTEF. Ed Metcalf got the Joe Tarver Award for his long and hard-working service to the industry. Congratulations, Ed Metcalf. Congratulations on your retirement. I can't wait to see what you're going to get up to next. Bradford Denny got the Tile Person of the Year Award. Let's give it up for Brad. He has been working tirelessly. I've been listening and I should say reading his advice on the internet for close to 15 years in the John Bridge forums before Facebook was ever even thought of. We got Angie Halford, Mark Christensen, Josh Nordstrom. They all won CID Artisanship Awards for their artisanship. Incredible stuff. You should have seen, if you haven't seen this alligator that Joshua Nordstrom and Lee put together, it's incredible. We got Nick Sturzik, Michaela Fedor, Ken Ballin, Adam Abel, and Sarah Williams all won what we call the Rockstar Award. And these guys really are rock stars. They're out there rocking it up. And I do want to thank one more person, very near and dear to me, who was here. John Bridge came, and it's always a privilege to know John Bridge and get to hang out with him. Let me tell you, he's my kind of guy. He's 80 years old. He's been at every single networking event after the show. And he's out doing you guys who are 30 and 20. So come on, give it up for John Bridge. Yeah. Without John Bridge, you know what John did?
He put us all together.
He put us all together, and he showed us how to use the internet.
Yes, he did.
To have a family.
You know, I went from PokerStars.com to the John Bridge Forum and never looked back.
That's awesome. I love it. All right. Well, I do want to thank our sponsors for the podcast: the National Tile Contractors Association, Laticrete International, GoBoard, and today we have a special bonus sponsor, Rodkat Products. Thank you all for believing in Tile Money Podcast. You are the companies that see a need and you're doing something about it. You're putting your money where your mouth is, and you're putting it back into the tile contractor's pocket directly through this podcast. Right. And so thank you to every single one of them. So let's do some introductions here. Now, we have Karen Teel. Karen, introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from and what you do at Rodkat.
Sure. I relocated to Salt Lake City, and I've known Rod. I came from the East Coast, actually, here in Florida. But about 23 years ago, I relocated to Salt Lake, and not too long after that, I built a custom home, and Rod was my tile contractor and his team. And so that's when I first met Rod 14 years ago. And then fast forward from there, about 6-7 years ago, I kept that home, but then I remodeled another home, sort of started from scratch on the inside. And so Rod and his son were able to, who's also a tile contractor, Jason Katwyk, they ended up doing all my bathrooms, my kitchen, all of that work there. So Rod and I have always had a friendship, and we've connected usually once a year since that time. And he sort of showed me what he was up to, which is always many things. And I saw the foam cutting that he was doing. And I'm like, gosh, that really seems to have some potential for the trade in terms of, how you can make a difference and help people streamline their processes and be more quality focused in terms of consistency. And from that, 2 years ago, we sort of teamed up, or a year and a half ago, and we'll talk more about that today.
Excellent. Well, thanks for sharing that story. Incredible story from consumer, hiring a contractor to working with him now as a partner.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. Rod Katwyk, if you friends who are listening to this podcast today haven't heard Rod's story, we did interview him in February 15th of 2019. Rod, can you tell us a little bit more about what you've been up to since about 2.5 years ago?
I had my own tile contracting company for about 25 years, been in the trade for 35 years, and slowly as I was starting to develop, products with styrofoam, which my first patent was a 3D wedge that goes on the back of tile, and going from that, to making shower curbs and benches for tile guys, and then perfecting, a way of doing a custom sloped bench, I finally was able to, I'd helped another company do a big arena where the Utah Jazz play, and all my crews worked with this other company, and at the end of the job, I said to my guys, so we're going to stick in this commercial, I'm going to team up with another company, and my main guy said, no, I think you should just focus on your foam. It seems big enough. You don't need to work out in your shop until 11 o'clock every night and then come with us. We want to go to work for this bigger union company. And, the relief, so having guys that have been with me for 14 years, to be able to go off to another good company. And then, when you and I had our first podcast, I had just found out exactly how much money I needed to make per day to basically, make my payments of my house and stuff. And just focusing on just the foam and growing the foam business, it was able to get me, off my knees. And the reward for me is helping other tile people, So it's one thing to help the rich and famous and, let them pick on, 2 pieces of gray tile being close to each other or whatever. But to all of a sudden help tile guys and them like, oh, this is awesome. This is so easy for me now. Thank you. That was the reward for me, And so after that, it seemed like we just skyrocketed,
It seems like you have skyrocketed in the last, like we're saying, 2 years, a big thanks to Karen, right?
So that's where it brought us here right now is the systems and processes, So me as, this tile-crazed innovator that just ran around and, just made things, and I paid no attention to office people, hiring an accountant was a big step for me, but to actually have office managers and people that are handling all of these other things as far as ordering and shipping, once that Karen helped me put that system into place, it just seemed like I actually had more time and more freedom to be more of, the tile-crazed innovator, but...
What you're really good at, right? That magic.
But that's the big thing, So that's, again, why we're here.
I love it. Thanks for sharing. To my right is Christopher Rachel. If you're not following Christopher Rachel on Instagram, on social media, you should. He shares a lot. He's running a very successful business. You really need to listen to his episode on November 10th, 2020 to catch up with Chris. Chris, what have you been doing the last year since we did that?
Since the last year, we've had my wife and I had a kid. It's 4
Congratulations!
months old now, so
congratulations.
That really changed. Thank you. That really changed.
I think we have one too. No. Oh. There was a clapping one. I'm sorry.
Got to get another button on there.
I got to get another button. I'm sorry. I messed up your flow.
No, that's fine. Having a kid, that's a big thing. So that obviously changed the way that I was working prior to my wife's pregnancy and having a kid. So I went from working 7 days a week to kind of narrowing that down to 5 days a week, been able to take weekends off and spend that time with family. So
good for you. Good for you. And you've used systems and processes, I know, which we're going to get into here in a little bit. And I'm so proud of the business you built and how much you share. It's really incredible. So
any way I can help.
Thank you. So today's topic is, systems and processes. Karen, why are you so passionate about this topic? Why did you say you and Rod kind of picked this topic today? Why?
Why? I mean, that's a great question. I mean, quite honestly, I don't know how to do work without systems and processes. I came from a structured business, American Express, for 10 years, and then I worked an outsourcing business for DirecTV, and I was responsible for training and quality there with larger groups of people. And so basically with entrepreneurship and having a small business, there's so much that you can take from those larger companies and apply to this small business. You don't have to become slow and labor intensive and making decisions or any of that. You just take the best of those practices and put it in your small business to make things more efficient and effective. Because at the end of the day, it really gave Rod relief and a lot less stress, just if you look at it from a daily basis. But it's a huge shift from going from a tile contractor to using systems and processes and trusting others.
And at times very uncomfortable. Yeah.
Can you expand on that? In a little bit.
Kind of, when you have a list of to-dos, and you're not used to that. And for me, I a lot of times just follow the next shiny object. So I'll go into the shop and the intention will be maybe to kick out these orders or do this. And, I'm working on the Laticrete fountain, and it's like, God, it's a lot funner to work on the Laticrete fountain, and talk to Angie about it. And then, come back and it's like, so did you follow up on X, Y, and Z? And it's like, oh, man, I didn't, So then I started feeling a little bit like I'm losing this freedom. I'm losing the freedom of going into my shop and being able to do all of these other things that I thought were way more important than following up on invoicing, and taxes and stuff like that. So it took a minute, and we've had very long conversations about it, and it is crazy that the more that you do those things, actually, the more time and freedom that you have. You just don't realize that you get tangled up in this web of getting pulled and going 3 different directions.
I think you're like me and a lot of tile contractors who focus on the craft and, forget about a lot of these things we're talking about, systems and processes and why they're important. One of the things I love to highlight, and I love that we're highlighting it today, is you found someone outside the industry that took a completely different background, American Express, right? Mm-hmm. Completely different background, and applied her business knowledge. And this is one of the things I stress. Business knowledge is business knowledge. Before Tile Money, I was listening to real estate and other business podcasts and applying it to my tile business. And I love to highlight that because it's so important to get an outsider's perspective and maybe, change your business and change your life. So it's incredible.
Yeah, and I think, again, Rod was doing some systems or some processes, but didn't think of it in those terms, right? And so it's really defining it. Like when I joined him, he did have an accountant, but he didn't really know everything the accountant was going to do for him, and maybe maximizing their effectiveness and saving your receipts and making, make a log of all your business trips so that information gets handed off. And so there's so many missed opportunities if you don't take the time to sort of do an inventory of your different systems. So we talked this morning about one of them being marketing. We don't throw a lot of marketing dollars out there because he has built relationship, and then he uses social media for a lot of that marketing, which he would never have labeled it that, but that's really what it is, right? And so we only had to just take some existing things and sort of put it in these buckets. So I had to learn QuickBooks. I never knew QuickBooks, and that's what he was working on. And so I sort of self-taught myself that enough to get by to then get other things in place. And so I have to stretch and grow too, and so it's sort of this learning process and growth process as this business grows. You're really, just as he invented a product, if you will, and patented a product, and that's sort of his baby, the business becomes that as well, almost like a family member.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Now, Rachel, you're also someone who's passionate about this subject. That's why I thought of you right away, and you came in right away, and we're very excited to do it. Tell me why. Where does your passion come from?
My passion comes from, the industry, obviously, but being able to maximize what we can do within the industry by using systems and processes. I'm a firm believer if you don't have some type of system in place, you're holding yourself back quite a bit. Like one of the big systems that I implemented was driving a lot of call volume to my company and being able to have multiple clients to choose from, for who I do work for. I mean, finding that client that's willing to pay the highest price, ultimately. And I do have a pretty good system in place for that, I believe. But, as with any system, there's always room for growth. So I'm always looking for the next best thing within those systems.
Yeah. That's great. I love it. I love to hear it. Now, we talked a little bit about the passion. Did we talk much about the rewards? I really want to highlight the rewards that you felt. We did talk about that a little bit. Is there anything that you can point to, like a specific example of,
I'm really into balanced lifestyle. And I don't think in the tile arena, contractors and many other professions, that's always the case, right? And how do you leave a job and feel good about going on vacation and knowing the work's going to get done in a certain way? Well, you know that by having systems and processes in place. And I think today, like Rod was able to talk to his office manager, for example, on a couple of topics, and maybe he checks in with her once or twice throughout the day. But, her comment was, everything's going really well, and that's a new experience for Rod, but that's the reward, that's definitely the reward of the hard work and then taking this product and taking it to the next level by building that infrastructure around it to support it. And, at the end of the day, many of you may know the book E-Myth, and Rod has looked at that, I've read it, and it was so fun for me to read because it was basically what things I knew. Those were the tools I knew, but to see how it could apply to a small business and the percentages of small businesses that fail because they don't do that work. And because you can't grow. It's like the assembly line and the product's coming down the assembly line and there's no one there to catch it except you, the owner. Well, you can't keep growing your business without the systems and processes in place. So the rewards are there to have that balance in your lifestyle, help other people in the community with jobs. In the industry, some of them have that experience, some don't, to learn about performance management systems and attendance and being rewarded for your work that you're doing. Rod's getting to learn all that in a different way than the tile trade, because when you have sort of the 9-to-5 job, which it is for some people, or the 7 to 3, there's different expectations around that. And then the whole customer service arena, which I'm very passionate about. I think, customer service, and American Express prided itself on that. We did with DirecTV at Convergys. There's so many opportunities when you provide good service. And, a person that gets bad service is going to go tell 10 more people about that experience, where the good service maybe not quite as much, but the word gets out there. Yeah. So I'm passionate about that, too.
That's awesome. I love I love that. What was the first thing you said? Like it helps you with your lifestyle,
Balance.
Yeah. Balanced lifestyle. Without a balanced lifestyle, you get burned out too fast. And you end up not being happy with your work, and you just want to quit every day. And there's a lot of different problems that come if you lose that balance.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I think it's really hard because people think, I'll work harder, I'll work more, and I'll be happier. But at the end of the day, not always. Or health issues come up because you're not taking care of yourself. Yeah. And so it's this sort of treadmill people get on, and I think when you learn to use these processes and systems, it runs itself. It's like a well-oiled machine. But it takes, again, some effort. And I think Rod and I's biggest challenge was making, and we're still working on it, but making that shift and that understanding, like, this is going to help me, and I've got to surrender a little bit to this. And because, all of you are pretty strong, passionate people about what you're doing, and what is feeling like the right way. But your earlier comments, Luke, about like taking someone's experience and listen, maybe just listen for a minute. Might sound really weird. Give it a try. Yeah. Try something different, stretch yourself.
Yeah. Try something new. Right.
Yeah.
That's excellent. Yeah. Do you have certain other rewards that you've noticed in your life?
One is, with, an office manager, people that are taking care of payroll. It's nice for me to not wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and think about things that, I've got to do this, I've got to do that, So, again, you notice that with sleeping at night, and, being a tile contractor, we're worried about so many different things, So to get back into manufacturing and then trusting people, and everybody has a job at our company, and we can all, jump into other people's jobs, but the good thing about it is when I'm away from that shop, I still know that I have, 2 or 3 people there in the back running and doing everything. Questions are easy. They can ask themselves, each other these questions. And then now with emails and Karen especially, when I do a show like this, I get really focused on the booth and the people, and my phone can be totally blowing up, and I feel like I don't have any attention to look at my phone call, and it could be as simple as your delivery's here, do you want it shipped out to you, but you ignore that, and now you're behind the 8 ball on what just happened. And so to be able to be proactive even sometimes about that and reach out to them and say, when it gets here, send it to that, that's a big part of the freedom that I feel like I have, So if you can get in front of your business that way, and you don't have all of these different variables where you're trying to put out fires and you're preventing fires, that's the reward, put away the heart medicine and we're all good.
Sounds like a much healthier lifestyle overall. Which, again, we need that. We need to stay healthy. Without our health, we've got nothing. And so many of us get into business, and we get into business to provide for our families or to reach a goal. But what happens oftentimes to business owners is they lose that focus, and they forget. They were working for their families, but they forgot about them along the way. And so that's what we're talking about here today. To not let that happen, don't let the business run you. You run the business, and that's really what this is all about. Now, Christopher, Rachel, do you have any rewards in your life that you can talk about and share?
I do. Relating specifically to the systems and processes, if I would have learned early on how important it is to delegate certain things, just like Rod was saying, you need to have an accountant, maybe a marketing guy. I know that's not your case, but for some of us smaller guys, we need a marketing guy. And, I see a lot of guys, they do their own marketing. And I think that's great that they can do that, but it's kind of important, just like you were saying, learn how to delegate some of that stuff out so you can have more time to focus on your business. So, of course, when I figured that out later on, it was very rewarding because I was able to free up some of my time and not have to come home late at night, sit in front of the computer, do the books, or try to figure out how to market my company on Facebook or Google or wherever. These systems, these systems are very rewarding. From what everyone posts, especially in Tile Money, seeing everyone's different systems, it's cool because you kind of have a broader perspective of what everybody's doing. So you can kind of pick and pull different pieces out of other people's systems and use it on your own. Yeah. Kind of build your own process.
Absolutely. So far we've really been talking about the life rewards, the impact on your personal life and your growth as a human, right?
Right.
So let's all dig into the actual business a little bit more, if we can go a little deeper, and maybe you have a specific example, maybe with Rod's business or something, and where you can say, because we did X, we got Z.
Yeah, profitability, right? Everybody wants to know how's this going to affect the bottom line. And, for Rod, it's hard to see a person sitting at a desk when he doesn't understand. Like, I'll explain to him, doing an email or making those phone calls or following up with customers or greeting a customer when they walk in, it's just as important as what you're cutting in the back. That's a tangible thing that you can see and do, and that's the product, right? But, I was doing that role in the beginning before we were able to bring on 2 employees in the front, Connie and Kirsten, and a great team, and they complement each other. They have different backgrounds of experience. One has a lot more experience in this kind of industry. The other one, great customer service skills and learning some different things, great Excel skills. So looking for those skill sets that you need to make things efficient. And then that allowed me to step out and then focus on other things more strategic with Rod in building the business. So the tactical operations, very different than the strategic, right? And so I think for Rod, those are new kind of thoughts or terms or way of looking at the business, more tactical day-to-day operations. And so we actually developed a schedule that would, I think it's, letting your employees also have a say into what their day's looking like and how does it work best for them so they have job satisfaction, right? So they're happy to come to work. And we get those remarks back all the time. And it's, again, it's own little family, a work family. But the women up front, they share a full-time schedule, but divide it the week between their days and hours. So there's always someone there, and then do the handoffs, and communication's key. If you're helping a client with something and tomorrow's not your day in and the other one is, the next one will follow up. But if we have the processes in place, that makes it seamless. If you don't have the processes in place, it's hard to do. And that just complements sort of our ability to be away from the office. So it's really the same kind of thinking on that smaller tactical scale where they're able to do those handoffs and still have the business run smoothly. And, I think, profitability, as I talked in the beginning, when I first started with Rod a year and a half ago, he couldn't really keep up with invoicing, let alone collecting. And so there was a lot of outstanding accounts receivable. And so that was Connie's first job. And she had experience with that and had no problem calling and asking people to handle their accounts. And, today what the books look like from where they did before, it's night and day. Yeah. And also we've implemented a process where people pay for their product before they leave. That doesn't sound like a difficult idea. Rod...
Sounds radical. It sounds like a radical idea. I mean, like, what? Tile guys, they argue with me all the time. I don't get paid until, a week after the job's finished, sometimes 3 weeks. I don't get paid a penny. They've invested their own money into that job.
True.
I've done it. And so I'm not picking on anybody. That's just the way we think. That's the way we are.
Right. So, and we have some people on 30 days, like net 30, but we work with each person on an individual basis, and it's assumed like until you have a conversation about it, and we can work with you, that's absolutely fine. So it just depends on the situations. Sure. But a lot of the new contractors, we get them all the time from Park City and coming down, and they didn't know Rod personally from working with them back in the tile industry, and they're just used to that flow. They whip out their credit card, they're ready to pay their products, and it's hundreds of dollars, and we're good to go.
You just nailed it. You implemented the system and process, and you said, these are our rules. And they said, that's fine. We'll pay right now. Yeah. And it's incredible how you do that. And you take that back to your construction and contractor businesses, and you say, well, this is the way we do business. What happens is they're not mad at you. They're actually appreciative of you because now they feel safe. They feel comfortable that you have a contract. You take a deposit. You do this. You do that. You know exactly. You lay out the rule, and they're happy to abide by it because they want you as their contractor. So that's a key point.
Yeah. And our Connie, our office manager, made that comment the other day. It makes them feel better to just say, hey, how do you want to take care of that today, than having to say, oh gosh, you know what I mean. And it's I think it will help them in their own businesses do the same thing. Yeah. To your point,
sense of confidence goes a long way. People can see that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Karen, can I get you to scoot your mic toward me just a little? I got you too close. You're perfect. That's great.
Great.
I got you too close. Rod, did you want to add anything to that?
For me, because I was so busy in the back, cutting orders, and when, Karen and I got together and I was telling her, I'm like, my shop is like a pizza delivery business, 30 minutes or less, I can have your custom tray, we'll send it on Uber, away you go. So in that pace and the growth that we were getting, doing an invoice was a distraction, and it slowed me down, so I would just, take Luke Miller's name and I'd put it in the desk, and I'd know that, on a Sunday I was going to pull out all of those invoices and put them together. And what I started noticing, and we talked about this last night a little bit, and, so many of us will go to Home Depot and we'll buy our, $100 or $200 worth of product, and we pay with our, pay for it, and away we go. And you don't notice that, but you, all of a sudden you get a Home Depot card and you go to Home Depot, and then the end of the month you get a statement for $2,300, and it's like, oh man. And so as bad as I felt at first, invoicing some of these guys that were rolling in with 3 bald tires and a spare tire, and it's like, I don't want to bill them right now. I started, it was worse for them, as they like, oh my God, did I really do that much last month, So in my industry and that, I think it's better to just hit them, boom, boom, boom. The bigger guys, like she said, we have accounts, and it's good, but there's nothing wrong with, if these guys are going to Floor and Decor and stuff like that, they're paying for their stuff as they're pushing it out the door. So that's what I had to slow down a little bit. It's crazy to think I had to slow down to collect the money. And then, with getting these front office people, us as tile contractors, we know that we earn money off of tile setters, So if we've got a guy and he's putting in a couple 100 feet a day and we know that's money and we count on that, then you're hoping, well, maybe this helper will at least make it so it's, my salary isn't going towards cleaning the tile saw at the end of the day. But again, front people, it didn't make a lot of sense to me. But then when I did see how much money I was owed, and we brought Connie in, and all of a sudden I started seeing, these QuickBook payments, and it's like, whoa, this much money today? Whoa, 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 and it was like I was collecting more money, and so the value, I all of a sudden saw the value of that person, up front.
So how many personnel, what is the difference between like when we talked last time and then you hired, it sounds like a few people?
Yeah, I think, what are we up to, 5?
Yeah, 5 if you count yourself. I'm not counting me in that number.
Yeah.
So there's, Rod and 2 employees in the back, and we have one that's a lead on the table doing the work, cutting and doing the work on the shower trays and curbs and benches, and another young man, he wears a lot of hats. I mean, from going out to the dump to picking up our raw material at the foam production shop, and then Rod overseeing a lot of that, and he still has his cut business that he's working with a little bit on a water jet, and he can expand on that, but they're sort of focused in the back area, and then the 2 that share a full-time FTE, a full-time equivalent position, is shared between these 2 ladies. Nice. And I sort of float around. But, again, it's giving me freedom because everyone's doing their jobs now. I think, in January, that's really where we got to. It wasn't until more recently that I almost had to step out to let everyone step in.
Yeah, and that I posted the letters, that Karen had wrote to all of us, as she stepped out, and I put that on Tile Money.
I remember that.
Right.
Thank
when
you
reached out. Yeah.
Thank you. We'll try to dig that up and put that in the show notes.
Yeah, perfect.
For sure.
Yeah, and it's really empowering everyone to do their jobs.
Yeah.
And again, Rod had to let go, and he had to trust, and he had to know that, maybe it's like, gosh, now what do I do, right? You've been used to doing something for so long, but there's always something.
I go help my son set tile a little bit when he gets behind.
Cool. Sounds fun. Do you think that, obviously you're selling more product.
Right.
But do you think you would have as many employees, now? Because one of the things with chaos, you don't know where the money is. You can't afford the employees.
Right. Yeah, no, I wouldn't probably be in the space that I'm at. I opened up a brick and mortar retail, where we're selling, a lot of different manufacturers, drains, waterproofing, and stuff like that. I would have never been able to put that together.
Very cool. So there's a direct result.
Yeah.
Christopher, what's going on, man? Can you share a specific example in your business of something you changed or tweaked or put a system into place and it had a specific result and growth?
Yeah, I really like to hit on the marketing side. That's pretty big. It was life-changing for me. Getting some good advertising out there and driving a ton of clients to your company. And
what do you mean by a ton?
So last year, I averaged 5 phone calls a day. So I had around 2,000 leads last year for bathroom and kitchen remodels.
For a one-person company?
Yes. And, of course, that's not exactly cheap to do. But if you can figure out a way to kind of single out some of those people before you go to their home and give them the estimate, and figure out which one is looking for quality, which one is willing to pay for quality. If you can do that over the phone, then, obviously that's a win, because you're not wasting your time spending all that windshield time driving around, going out to give an estimate for someone that's like, oh my gosh, we thought our bathroom remodel was going to be $5,000, and you hit them with, it's a standard bath, it's going to be 20 or 25, and they're, that kind of,
you'll never make it. You'll never meet in the middle.
Yeah, you're just running around in circles. So,
well, you're really talking about two different things here. So you got the marketing, which is number one. That's generating the leads. And then the number two thing that you mentioned was, what are you going to do when that phone rings?
I mean, that's the thing, is you've got to be on your phone constantly.
Okay.
And you've got to
you try to answer it
almost.
You answer it as soon as it rings?
You got to answer it as soon as it rings. And, if you do miss a call, it's very important to try and call that person
But how
back.
do you weed people out? Are you just having a conversation with them, or do you have like 6 questions you ask?
Yes. So, when someone calls, usually what I'm doing is asking them the scope of their project. The reason I ask that first is because I want to know whether or not this is even a project that I'm interested in. When they give me the scope of their project, I ask them their address. As they're telling me their address, I'm on my phone. I'm putting this in Google Maps because I'm a remodeling contractor. I pull a trailer. I want to make sure that I can actually get my truck and trailer to this client's home to do the job before I waste my time on the phone with them. As they're giving me the address, I'll look up that home, make sure I can pull in, be able to work there, first of all. And, once they give me the address, I see that, I'm able to say, yeah, I can come look at your job, or give them a rough quote of what that job will cost. And how that person responds to that rough quote tells me whether or not they're a good client for my company or not. If they're a little bit if they have a little bit of a sticker shock, then I try to find a nice way out of that conversation, or, refer them to the CTEF website to find a certified tile installer, to make sure that a client isn't, getting someone that's not qualified in their home doing that labor. But that's kind of the process that I have for phone calls, and of course it can vary slightly a little bit as well. But given those rough numbers over the phone, I think is very important.
That was really neat, Chris, because what I'm hearing there, it's the system's lead generation that was a subsystem of your marketing.
Yes.
And then the process is what you just described.
Yes.
And so how many people really take the time to do that analysis before? In this situation, you learned that through trial and error probably, but now you can take all of that knowledge and apply it to something else.
Yes.
And be proactive with how you set up the system and the process to support it.
Yeah.
So it's almost like don't start anything new. I mean, Rod can have this learning too. Like, okay, so if you're going to do X, where does that fit in the system world of all of these, if you want to say departments or focus areas, whatever words we want to use, and then what processes are you going to set up to support it? Because you mentioned many times save time, does it even work, like frustration and just annoyance and trying to get your truck in that neighborhood, but you're eliminating all of that from your day.
Yes.
So that you can go
Right
home
from the
at
phone.
5 o'clock and be a happy person too, right?
Exactly.
For your family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it can be frustrating at times because I am a one-man show. And I do all the work and I answer the phone. So usually I have earbuds in while I'm working, talking to clients. So got to kind of multitask there a little bit. But that process, I got the idea from a few other companies that are franchise companies in the bathroom and kitchen industry. They do something very similar with their clients. So I picked up on that just a few years ago and implemented that into my company, and it's worked amazing. I mean, it was life-changing, honestly.
That's neat. And you can benchmark, right? Like you can go out and be a consumer and find out what other companies are doing and then take it into your organization, tweak it, and take it back in. And that's what you're describing that you did.
Yes.
So that's perfect because why not, right?
Exactly.
Why not? If one thing, my brother-in-law told me early on in my company, because I had, growing up in this, the tile industry, in the real world, and I moved around a lot and worked for a lot of companies. I was a misclassified employee since I was 17, and when I got my license at 25 in the state of California, that's how I started hiring. And then my brother-in-law pointed out I was really doing things illegally and putting my clients in a precarious spot and myself in a precarious spot. And, it wasn't going to be the best way to run a business. And so we started crunching numbers and started looking into insurance and workers' comp. And I said, this can't be done. I can't stay competitive. And he pointed out about 6 other local contractors. He said, look at them. If they're doing it, you can do it too. And now it wasn't my direct industry, but it was like electricians or plumbers. He said, if they're doing it, you can too. And then I said, okay. Well, what I have to do then is figure out how. If I'm going to charge double everybody the competitive price, how am I going to charge that and get away with it? Well, I had to change my image. I had to step up my marketing. I had to do a lot of different small things, and it's mostly customer service. So that's a great point.
Yep, it really is. I mean, customer service, it's hard to put a price tag on that, but it is so incredibly important in this competitive marketplace for everything. And the relationships that are built. And the image, like you said, I mean, how you present yourself and how you interact with customers and make eye contact. And I think Rod hit on it as follow-up. And I would definitely say that hasn't been a strong suit of Rod's in the past because he was so busy, but now he understands the importance of that.
Yeah, and Karen will say, what do you say, the task starts or stops with the client?
Yeah, I mean, I always try to think of everything as beginning and ending with a customer. And so if there's an order, that a customer's making, how do we end that with that customer and make them feel really good about their purchase
no
too.
No crumbs.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of clients, when they call and I go to the home, they're actually surprised that I showed up on time. Not all of them, of course, but, most of them are, because a lot of contractors, they'll say, hey, I'll be there at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, and 6 o'clock on Wednesday rolls around, and they're like, where's this guy at? So, if you're just showing up on time and communicating with a client in this industry, you're going to be doing pretty well.
Yeah. That reminds me of a story I want to tell and share with everybody, because I talk a lot about coming to coverings and TICE and TSP and the events, the local events, and getting to know your local people, and how powerful it can be, because you're rubbing shoulders, you're learning from one another. We've already discussed all this. But I was visiting with Jeff Okapenti from Portland, Oregon. He's not really active on social media a lot, so I really enjoy going to these shows to get to know people like Jeff, who aren't always, I don't always stay in contact with them on Facebook, but we get together and it's like we're old friends. He shared with me his system. He said every morning he just wakes up around 4 or whatever he does, but he prepares it so that at 6 a.m. on the dot, he's emailing everybody that emailed him in the last 12 or 24 hours since the last 6 a.m. So every single day, 6 a.m., whether it's 6 clients or, however many clients he has to stay in contact with, and he emails them all at 6. It's consistent. They know they're going to get an email with an update on their job, and it feels good, you know? And so now I shared it with the thousands of contractors. Think about it. Think about what we're talking about here today. I hope we've convinced you that systems and processes is worth considering. Now, the big question, Karen, and you guys, is how to do it, right? Because tile contractors and people in general, and myself included, we have a certain mindset, right? And 90% of the battle is your mind. It's in your mind. So how do we get over that mindset of maybe, we live in chaos, right? And that feels good. It feels good to go to Home Depot 3 times a day. It doesn't put money in your pocket, but it feels kind of good, doesn't it, Rod?
Oh, yeah. You get to see your friends.
Do you ever go to Home Depot and just pick up an extra Milwaukee box or something?
I mean, no comment.
So how do we overcome that mindset?
It was interesting that you say that, because I noticed that Rod really seemed to like going to the landfill, to the dump. And he really liked going to the bank, and I'm like, okay, that's really great. However, you could be doing these things instead and letting our employee go and do those things. Or even with COVID, I ended up doing some online banking and deposits. So there's so many different ways to do it. So I think the key is, now this is almost more of, like you said, more in the head and the emotional side of things. You have to ask yourself why. Why do I like doing those things? And what can I do instead of to still be happy? And what is it about it, you know? And I think Rod today will say he's cool with not. He still goes to the bank once a week. I think we put that back in because it's easy. It's on the way home. It works, and he has those relationships. Cool. But the landfill part, not as much.
The landfill part, though, believe it or not, was a lot of marketing also, because anytime a truck and trailer would pull up next to me and dump out a bathroom, I would run right up to that person and say, hey, what do you do for your shower pans? I make this. And I first one freed it for a year or two, guys. I mean, I gave away so much stuff, but they all came back, you know. So, you know, I mean, when you're going from, you know, a tile mud man to a piece of styrofoam, you know, and if that first one is free, you don't feel so invested into it, you know, and you see how it goes. But I love that at the dumps, you know. It's like somebody, you can hear that sound of that tile being dumped. and, you know, I like the smell there, and, you know, I don't feel judged over there. So, yeah, the landfill's my vibe.
I can relate. I love a good landfill.
So he can do all of that in the shop, in the front with customers, right? But it was a transition. And I think the other word that comes to mind is resistance. And so if you're feeling resistance to things, again, dig a little deeper, figure out what it is, because those are the barriers to doing a lot of this. You know, you might say, well, I have no time. I mean, a lot of people would say that. I have no time to even figure out how I'm going to do these things to save time and to increase revenue and to increase my customer base. So maybe it's as simple as saying, I like what you said about the 6 a.m. thing, and I've talked to Rod about this, like his morning ritual includes looking at Facebook and doing some of that. That's great, but maybe that's either complemented with or replace some mornings with the customer contact, or how you just can't lose sight of the need to do that too. So balancing it all. And I think he's less on his phone. Like he said, his neck would hurt because he'd be on his phone and looking down all the time.
You don't have to tell me about that. You know, it's funny. I had to implement the opposite morning ritual. I leave my phone off for at least an hour so that I don't, because once you get on there, all of a sudden it's noon and you were on Facebook. And so for at least an hour to get your head right, think about your day, think about the number one goal you're going to do that day, and then get that done before you get on Facebook, hopefully.
Yeah. Exactly, because it's all time, right? It comes down to time, and time's precious. And, you know, maybe it's that, like Rod, you know, from 4 to 6 now, he's really cool with this. It's his creative time.
Nice.
you know, and so that's his block of time where he can turn the music up and do what he wants to do, and that's where the innovator part comes in. And, you know, and that used to be sprinkled throughout the day all the time. Like, you know, it was going to the next thing, because something caught his attention. So it's really learning to manage yourself and your thoughts and your behaviors, and then carving out, well, I'm going to work on my business. So, you know, there's going to work in the business or on the business, right? So go to work on the business an hour a day. Find that hour somewhere.
Yeah.
You know?
I can relate again, you know, when things are real hard and I'm just, you know, like, you know, I mean, I can't say pulling my hair out, but I'm just like really stressed out because I'm like, I can't figure it out. I can't figure this problem out, you know? My wife, she'll say something really nice, like, why don't you grab a beer and go sit in the hammock for a while? And 9 times out of 10, it works. Because as an entrepreneur, as a creative person, you've got to allow yourself that creative time. You know, that's where the magic happens. And again, put the phone down. That's not doing us any help when we're trying to work, right?
Right.
Unless your work is the cell phone, which often it is. Now, Chris, have you had to overcome any mindset blocks in your business, specifically with this?
Yes. You know, specifically when I first started my company, I had a vision of having multiple employees and potentially one day in the future franchising. You know, I had some pretty big goals there. When I did implement employees into my company, it took me a little while, but I realized that I'm not someone that enjoys, well, I enjoyed having employees. I don't want to say I didn't enjoy it, but it just didn't work for me that well. You know, I was constantly stressed out. I was spending a lot of time making sure that those guys were taken care of. So it was very hard for me to overcome and realize that employees are not my thing. And I've kind of filled in that void a little bit with helping other guys, you know, in the Facebook groups or talking to them in person, like local guys, you know, helping others grow their companies has become a passion as well. So that was getting over the not being able to have employees, more or less, was very hard for me to overcome.
Oftentimes we start out and we kind of know where we want to go, but we might be wrong,
Yeah.
And having the awareness to say, okay, I'm going to step back down. I had to do that a lot of times, right? You go backwards to go forward. You slow down to speed up.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think in your model, Chris, you're getting the quality leads, and so you want to be the one doing the work, most
I do.
likely.
I do.
And so that's where you also saw, like, to train people at that level,
It
it
is
doesn't
very
make
difficult.
sense. And
Very
so
difficult.
the revenue's working, the model's working, and you're happier.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
with Rod's scenario, there was just so much work. There's no way he could have kept up with everything in his situation. I mean, and a different kind of work. It's very and almost transactional and quick. He prides himself on, we get an order that day, it gets cut and shipped that day, or by 2 o'clock. And if it's local, they can come in an hour or two sometime and pick up their tray.
Yeah.
And you can't find that anywhere else.
No.
Mm-hmm.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
And owning that niche, like you said, he's a single operator. And a lot of guys will tell you, like, you can't stay small because you'll never, be able to retire. But what Chris has demonstrated is that when you stay small and you are the single operator, what you have to do is actually your value rate is raised in the client's a certain percentage of clients per minds. They want that owner who's going to do all the work themselves.
Right.
Well, guess what?
Yes.
Your value goes up, so you raise your prices. You had a kid, so you raised your prices. And that's the way it works, because all that money is going to go in your bank because you've got, you don't have those employees that will see the company beyond where you want to take it, or beyond where you want to, step out.
Exactly.
And what I found, and I see it a lot with my friends that have tile companies right now. These employees are starting to run these companies because they, it's like, hey, I've got a saw and a truck, and clients or whatever. So they're able to kind of put that stress or that pressure on us of like, oh my God, this person isn't happy. I can't lose them. I've got these 4 houses coming up, and that's a hard thing in your mind to have to overcome day after day after day.
It's like you train someone that meets your quality or meets your level of quality, then they should be out on their own.
Yeah.
I mean, there they go.
Yeah. So next thing you know, they own half your company, your partners.
Yeah.
You're doing all kinds of different things. And a tile friend of ours, Mark Christensen, that got the award last night. He's always stayed, right with himself. And he's able now to get those prices, that he wants. I mean, his prices are really. He does really well, and it's a one-man show where he'll bring his a kid or two of his in. And Mark now, we've had this relationship. All started from the John Bridge Tile Forum, but we've had this relationship now with each other for, probably almost going on 10 years. And we've always talked back and forth as far as growth and employees. And I've seen him bring on a guy and then send a picture, of a throw up in your mouth moment, as the layout, And so again, when you are at that level, and you're getting paid and you're making that money and you're not having to worry about, scheduling those employees or stuff like that. I think it's a great position that you're in, and if you can, like you're saying, if you can get enough of these people coming to you, so you get to pick those clients, you're able to actually, it seems like when we're behind the 8 ball and we need that job, it's like, God, I really need that job. And, you're bidding it you're bidding it to get it, instead of let's just see how far I can push it. And I would tell Karen, it's like, you're growing a garden, and if you're out there eating every time that piece of vegetable or fruit is ripe, there will be no low-hanging fruit. There will be no storage in the cupboards and stuff. So I really do like these guys that, I see the calmness in the guys that come into my shop to get their shower tray, and off they go to do their thing, and they have a little bit more time to talk. They're showing me more pictures. They're more, the artistic craftsmen, and they're driving pretty nice trucks, some of these guys, And so I think your model's great,
Yeah.
And I would say to that, too, because there's only certain kind of people that want to be that manager of those people, right? Because if your passion's doing the work, it's a big transition, right, from the doer to the manager. In that leadership role.
Yeah.
And so that's a whole different ballgame. And so I'll ask Rod a lot, like, are you happy doing this? Do you like doing this? Because I don't want to go back and cut trees. That's not my thing, you know.
Yeah.
But he loves doing that,
Yeah.
right? And he still will love that, probably more than managing people or maybe having to have some difficult conversations, but they still have to happen. So someone has to have them,
Yeah.
you know, and we always figure that out. And Rod's doing more and more of that as time's going on. So it's growth, right? It's some changes and some growth too.
I'm glad you mentioned Mark Christensen again. You know, he won that CID award last night for that job he did a little bit ago. And incredible work, by the way. And to be reminded that he's a small one-man show, you know, I forgot that. And, you know, when I was a young contractor, 25 years old, I would flip through the Tile Letter magazine. I'd say, man, these guys are so far ahead of me. I'm never going to get their blah. And that's, you know, that's called lack mentality. But the point of it is, you can be a one-man show like Christopher and be very profitable, be very content where you're at. And then, like Mark Christensen, you can win awards for, you know, your design, your talent, and we saw that a lot last night at the NTCA award show.
Same with
know?
Angie.
Well, Angie, same thing.
Go
Absolutely.
Utah!
Yeah.
Go Utah! Utah's on fire. What are you guys smoking over there?
Yeah,
Drinking over there.
something in that water, you know. Chase Twitchell, you know, we've got him. So yeah, there's definitely some good in Utah and great connections.
Well, guys, this has been a great discussion. Thank you so much. We're coming up on an hour. Is there any one last sentence nugget of wisdom, or should we wrap this up?
Tile money, you know, I used to think it was an oxymoron, but it's starting to make more and more sense. So thank you, Luke, for putting this together. I've been a fan from day one. I really appreciated you giving me the time, you know, a few years back on the podcast. And it's fun to listen back to that and see where things are. And, you know, a lot of us have a lot of common interests and threads and stuff. And so, you know, if we can more, you know, focus a little bit more on the business side of it, the money part of it, you know, the process part of it, not so much, you know, every photo of some sick and twisted design. You know, I think it's going to help a lot of us out. So I really appreciate and support what you've got going.
That means a lot, Rod. I look up to you. Thank you for supporting us.
Yeah, no, and I think that what you're doing with education is amazing. I mean, it's the sharing, it's the coming together, and there's no right or wrong way to do things. And so it's just being open, you know, and you foster that, and I think it's a really great thing for this community.
Thank you, Karen. I'm so glad you were able to be here today on this. You really shared a lot. I'm looking forward to doing more.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Luke.
Absolutely, Chris.
Definitely appreciate everything you do within the group. It's awesome.
My pleasure, and thanks for everything you're doing. You're sharing a lot. All right, Tile friends. Well, that's it for this show. There are links in the show notes to the sponsors. There's links in the show notes to the Tile Money Business Boost Challenge, which is at the end of July. It's a 5-day challenge. It's really going to help you out. We're going to get a little bit more intense with our business education. As always, Tile friends, stay positive, stay happy, and above all else, stay profitable. We'll talk to you next week. Thank you guys so much for being here and sitting with us. We've got some limited edition keychains. You guys take each 5 or 6. All right, they're on the table. We've got some shirts from Rodkat, some tech hats from the other night. We had a great party. We've got a few other cool things laying around. Just grab them. Make sure you enjoy that. We got some stickers probably. Those swag bags. We got 2 or 3 of those green ones right there. If you didn't get one the other night, go ahead and get one of those. Thank you guys so much. It's been an honor to be here with you.
It's fun. Very fun.
Thank you.